What if I told you there once was a kingdom so radiant, so refined, that even the gods of Olympus would have envied its splendor? And yet it now sleeps beneath the waves, its voice silenced, its name whispered only by the winds over an ancient island. The Minoans. They were not just a people, they were an idea, a living poem of the Bronze Age, flourishing upon the jewel of the Mediterranean, the island of Crete. A society so advanced it could have been mistaken for the utopian cities of Plato's dreams. Their palaces were labyrinths, not of cold stone, but of color, of artistry, of symbols that spoke of mysteries we still struggle to decipher. They knew the rhythm of the sea, the secrets of trade, and perhaps the pathways between the seen and unseen. But like all great tales, theirs ended not with a gentle fading into memory, but with a roar. Nature and war conspired in an unholy alliance, earth-shaking, waves towering, invaders landing upon their shores, a vibrant civilization undone. And yet, I wonder, did they truly vanish, or did something of them remain, woven quietly into the tapestry of our own age? Did the wisdom of the Minoans, their spiritual art, their sacred symbols, their hidden rituals, slip into the currents of history, waiting for us to notice? In this journey, we will not simply recount the dates and facts of their rise and fall. No, facts are bones. We seek the spirit. We will wander their painted halls, trace the curling patterns of their frescoes, and listen to the faint echo of their music through time. We will examine the forces, natural and human, that tore their world apart. And perhaps most intriguingly, we will look at what their civilization can still teach us today, about beauty, about resilience, about living in harmony with forces greater than ourselves. So, breathe deep. Imagine the salt air of the Cretan shore, the sun setting gold over the wine-dark sea, the faint murmur of traders, artisans, and priestesses in the distance. This is not a mere history lesson. This is an awakening to an ancient truth, hidden in the ruins of a civilization that once danced with the gods and fell to the silence of the sea. Shall we begin? The story of the Minoans begins not in the dust of deserts or the shadow of mountains, but in the embrace of the sea. Crete, their home, was a floating fortress of beauty, suspended between three continents, Europe, Asia, and Africa. This was no accident of fate. The sea was their lifeline, their protector, and their mirror. It brought them goods, ideas, and perhaps visions from far-off lands. The earliest echoes of the Minoans reach back to around 3000 BCE, but it was between 2000 and 1450 BCE that their civilization blossomed into something almost mythic. Unlike many of their contemporaries, the Minoans left behind no grand stone fortresses, no walls to keep out enemies. Instead, they built sprawling palace complexes, Knossos, Phaistos, Malea, Zakros, each a labyrinth of corridors, courtyards, and hidden chambers. Walls for the Minoans were not for war, they were for art. Here, on plaster and stone, they painted not scenes of conquest, but of life, nature, and joy. Dolphins leaping in cerulean waters, priestesses in flowing gowns crowned with serpents, acrobats vaulting over bulls in an act both athletic and sacred. These images reveal something profound. The Minoans were not obsessed with death as the Egyptians were, nor with glory in war as the Mycenaeans would be. They were devoted to life itself. Esoteric traditions often speak of the two pillars of civilization, power and wisdom. Power builds empires, wisdom sustains them. The Minoans seemed to lean towards wisdom, seeking harmony with the cycles of nature. Their society, by all evidence, placed women in positions of ritual importance, unusual for the Bronze Age. Priestesses and possibly queens may have held authority alongside or above kings. And then there is the labyrinth. The myth of King Minos, the Minotaur, and Theseus is a story told long after the Minoans vanished, but the roots may be here, in the winding corridors of Knossos, in rituals we do not fully understand. In esoteric symbolism, the labyrinth represents the inner journey, the spiral inward to meet both your shadow and your divine core. The Minoans, it seems, built their spiritual philosophy right into their architecture. But wisdom alone cannot shield a people from the forces of the world. Sometime around 1600 BCE, a catastrophic event shook the Mediterranean, the volcanic eruption of Thera, modern-day Santorini. It was one of the most powerful explosions in human history, sending tsunamis crashing into Crete's shores and blotting out the sun with ash. The Minoans staggered, but they did not immediately fall. It would take another force, the sharp human edge of invasion, to end them. The Mycenaeans, warriors from mainland Greece, swept into a weakened Crete. Whether they came as conquerors or opportunists is still debated, but by 1450 BCE, the Minoan palaces lay in ruin. And yet, history whispers that no civilization truly dies. Traditions flow into the rivers of those who follow. The Mycenaeans absorbed Minoan art, religion, and even elements of their script. Perhaps in this way, the Minoan spirit, their love of beauty, of life, of the dance between order and chaos, lives on. The Minoans stand as a reminder of an ancient truth. Prosperity without harmony is fragile, but harmony without vigilance can be equally perilous. They balanced on the knife's edge between creation and destruction, until the blade turned.
If you wish to understand the Minoans, you must first understand that they spoke in more than words. Their truest language was in symbols. Like the glyphs on the walls of Egyptian temples or the runes etched into Norse stones, Minoan art was not decoration, it was a living scripture. Step into the grand court of Knossos in your mind's eye. The air smells faintly of salt and crushed herbs. Ahead, columns painted deep red taper downward, a design unlike any other in the ancient world. This was not an accident. In sacred geometry, the narrowing form draws the energy of heaven down into the earth, creating a channel between realms. Even architecture for the Minoans was an act of ritual magic. On the walls, dolphins leap through sapphire seas. These are not mere marine portraits. In the esoteric tradition, the dolphin is a messenger, a creature that traverses both the depths and the surface, the unconscious and the conscious. The Minoans may have understood the sea not only as a source of food and trade, but as a metaphor for the soul itself. And then there is the bull, massive, sacred, untamed. In fresco after fresco, Minoan athletes grasp its horns, vault over its back, and land gracefully on the other side. Bull leaping was not sport in the modern sense. It was a rite of passage, perhaps a living embodiment of the dance with chaos. To face the bull was to face life's most primal forces, and not to kill them, but to leap with them. Even their religious artifacts hint at deeper mysteries. The famous snake goddess figurines, women in flounced skirts, bare-breasted, holding serpents, suggest a reverence for the cyclical, regenerative power of nature. In many spiritual traditions, the snake is the keeper of knowledge, the guardian of thresholds. For the Minoans, this may have been the feminine principle of transformation, the goddess as life-bringer, death-bearer, and rebirth-giver. Their writing, Linear A, remains undeciphered to this day. Imagine a message written 3,500 years ago sitting before us like a sealed jar of honey whose sweetness we cannot yet taste. The fact that their words are locked away is perhaps fitting for a civilization steeped in the language of mystery. In esoteric thought, hidden knowledge is not lost. It waits until the seeker is ready to understand. The Minoans' relationship with the natural world was not passive. They studied its rhythms, the pull of the moon, the swell of tides, the seasons of planting and harvest. Their temples, aligned with the sun and stars, may have served as cosmic calendars. To live in sync with these patterns, to them, was not merely practical, it was sacred law. But here lies a paradox worth noting. A civilization so attuned to harmony with nature could be undone by nature's fury. This duality, the giver and taker, the nurturing sea that also swallows, permeates their art, their myths, their very identity. The labyrinth itself may have been their greatest metaphor. Life as a twisting path where joy and danger are never far apart. In the Minoans, we find a mirror for our own time. We too live in a world of intricate systems, global trade, and fragile harmony with the forces that sustain us. Their story is not a relic, it is a whisper, warning us to listen. Do you want me to proceed to core explanation, part 2, where we explore the deeper spiritual symbolism, the myths linked to the Minoans, and the shadow aspects of their civilization?
Every civilization casts a shadow, and the Minoans were no exception. If their art sang of harmony, nature, and joy, then their myths, retold by later Greeks, hinted at something darker, coiled deep within the heart of their culture. Consider the myth of the Minotaur, a creature born of divine will and human folly, imprisoned in an endless maze. In the Greek telling, King Minos commands the great craftsman Daedalus to build the labyrinth to contain this half-man, half-bull being. It is a story soaked in symbolism. The beast as the untamed chaos within the human psyche, the labyrinth as the winding corridors of the soul, and Theseus, the hero, as the seeker who must enter, confront the shadow, and return transformed. But here is the twist. The Greeks told this story long after the Minoans were gone. Was it a distortion, a political smear against a conquered people? Or was it an echo of real Minoan rites, initiations in which one symbolically faced the bull, the shadow, the death of the old self? Esoteric traditions teach that to meet the divine, you must first wrestle with your own darkness. Perhaps the Minoans lived this truth in the arena, the temple, and the labyrinth alike. There are hints that their spiritual system was not merely gentle nature worship.
Archaeological evidence suggests animal sacrifices, perhaps even, in rare cases, human ones. In their mythic logic, sacrifice was a bridge between worlds, an offering to restore balance when chaos threatened. It is uncomfortable to modern ears, but in ancient thought, life was not divided neatly into light and dark. The goddess who brought the harvest could also send the storm. Then there is the mystery of their end. The Thera eruption, so powerful it may have inspired the Atlantis legend, struck with unimaginable force. Ash blotted out the sun, tsunamis smashed coastal towns. For a people whose gods were tied to the sea and sky, such devastation would have been more than disaster, it would have been cosmic betrayal. In mythic terms, it was as if the divine had turned its face away. The Mycenaean conquest that followed sealed the Minoans' fate, but perhaps they had already lost their spiritual center. Prosperity can breed complacency. Beauty can lull vigilance. In esoteric philosophy, when a culture ceases to renew its sacred connection, when ritual becomes habit and wisdom becomes ornament, entropy sets in. The gods grow silent, and the walls begin to crack. Yet, even in death, they transformed. The Mycenaeans absorbed their symbols, their techniques, their myths. Greek religion inherited echoes of Minoan goddesses, bowl symbolism, and labyrinthine initiation rites. In this way, the Minoans became a hidden root system beneath the tree of Western civilization, feeding it in silence. And perhaps this is their greatest teaching. Civilizations, like people, are not destroyed when their bodies fall. They live on in what they have given, in the ideas, myths, and mysteries that seep into the souls of those who follow. The Minoans may have vanished from the shores of Crete, but their labyrinth still waits for anyone brave enough to enter, face the shadow, and seek the center.
The Minoans are gone, but their wisdom is not. If we strip away the centuries, the myths, and the crumbling frescoes, we find teachings that can still guide us through the labyrinth of our own lives. Let us start with the labyrinth itself. In modern spiritual practice, the labyrinth is a walking meditation, a winding path that draws you inward toward a center before leading you back out again. This mirrors the Minoan journey, to venture inward, confront the shadows within, and emerge transformed. Exercise 1. The inner labyrinth. Find a quiet space. This could be a park, a beach, or even the floor of your home. Imagine a spiral or labyrinth pattern before you. With each step inward, reflect on a challenge or fear you carry. Do not fight it, observe it, as a Minoan bull leaper might observe the charging bull. When you reach the center, stand still, breathe. See if you can hold that fear in your mind without being consumed by it. As you walk outward, imagine yourself transformed, carrying a new insight or strength into your daily life. The Minoans also remind us of living in harmony with nature's cycles. They aligned their temples with the solstices and equinoxes, marking the turning of the year as sacred. We too can reclaim this connection. Exercise 2. Calendar of the Sun and Moon. Choose one natural cycle to observe for a month, the phases of the moon, the time of sunrise, or the tides if you live near the sea. Keep a small journal of how the changes in nature align with your own moods, energy levels, and creativity. Over time, you may notice patterns. This is not superstition, it is attunement. Then there is the art of bull leaping, not as sport, but as a metaphor. Life will present you with challenges that cannot be bulldozed or ignored. They must be met with agility, courage, and grace. Exercise 3. The leap. Identify one obstacle you've been avoiding. Instead of attacking it head-on, ask, what is the elegant way over? This might mean reframing the problem, seeking collaboration, or transforming fear into curiosity.
Finally, the Minoan reverence for beauty is a lesson in itself. In a world obsessed with utility, beauty is an act of resistance. Create beauty in your surroundings, not for profit or productivity, but to nourish the soul. Exercise 4. The sacred space. Choose a corner of your home and make it a Minoan-inspired sanctuary. Use symbols, colors, or natural objects that speak to you. Spend a few minutes there each day in stillness or reflection. Let it remind you that life is not merely to be survived, but to be celebrated. When we apply these principles, facing the inner labyrinth, aligning with nature's cycles, leaping over life's bulls, and surrounding ourselves with beauty, we carry forward the essence of Minoan wisdom. And in doing so, we ensure that their civilization, though lost to the waves, continues to ripple outward, through us. The Minoans lived in a world where life and art were inseparable, where the rhythm of the sea dictated the rhythm of the heart, and where the sacred was woven into the very walls of their palaces. They understood something we often forget, that civilization is not measured only in power, but in the harmony it creates between people, nature, and the unseen forces that bind them. Their fall was sudden, violent, and seemingly final. Yet, as we have seen, they did not vanish entirely. Their symbols live on, in myths, in rituals, in the art and architecture of later cultures. More importantly, their spirit can live in us if we choose to embody it. The labyrinth still waits. It is not on Crete, not carved in stone, but within each of us. Every challenge, every season of change, every call to courage is another step deeper into its winding path. The bowl still charges, the sea still rises, and still the leap is possible. The Minoans teach us that beauty is not fragile, it is resilient. That harmony is not weakness, it is strength. And that to live fully is to dance with both the light and the shadow, knowing that each gives meaning to the other. So, as you leave this story and step back into your own life, ask yourself, what is the bull you must leap? What is the labyrinth you must walk? And what is the beauty you will choose to protect even in the face of the storm? For civilizations may crumble, seas may rise, but the wisdom carried in the human soul endures, waiting, like the ruins of Knossos, for the moment someone cares enough to uncover it once more.